High school teachers of Reddit, what is the one thing that you want your students to know that you'd never tell them in person? When you think you are being genius by getting me to talk about random things at the beginning of class instead of teaching, I'm really allowing it to happen. BC, I don't have enough plan to cover a full class. My favorite high school teacher, he taught history, confessed on the last day of my senior year that he always started class by talking about something completely random because he knew none of us were ready to pay attention right when class was supposed to start. Had no idea. It was a really good strategy that made the transition into the lesson a lot less jarring. I knew you were cheating, so I gave you a test with the answers in a different order for the rest of the semester. You clearly weren't very bright to figure it out. And yes, I am that spiteful. It was easier than reporting the cheating. No shitty, not high school, but in nursing school one of my classmates purchased the test keys. Made it to the third trimester of the program and come to find out, the professor for that part of our program makes his own exams. Dude dropped out after a week. Bye. One day you're going to come across people who are not being paid to tolerate you. And all of a sudden life is going to become considerably more difficult. I encourage my worst kids as much or more than my favorites because I don't want them back in my class next year. I wonder if that's one of the reasons some of those ever pass the grade. Well, they're not my problem now. Double quote. That is absolutely 100% true. That we have much better hearing than you assume. We just choose our battles as it pertains to inappropriate comments. And sometimes I pretend not to see that thing you did just because I too found it humorous. And speaking to you about it would only result in me cracking up. If you're going to eat in class, stop staring at me while you're doing it. You're ratting yourself out. I can smell you. Everyone can. Please, for the love of God, use deodorant. I run a bar. That it's just as weird for me as it is for you when we bump into each other in public. I saw my English teacher at the grocery store one. We made eye contact and I nodded. He nodded back. We kept walking. Said nothing about it the next day. Never brought it up. That's proper procedure. You know what, Jono? You're a little gold twice. Thanks, guys. I don't care that you came to class stoned. Just stop interrupting class. And for God's sake, don't touch any power tools while you're stoned. Yes, I do have favorite students. No, I won't tell you who they are because that would discourage you. But yes, they're probably who you imagine them to be. I tell my students that of course every teacher has favorites. But we don't have a quota. There is always room for more. Then I tell them the characteristics I really like in students. Like authenticity and perseverance. If I didn't think you would abuse the situation, I would really enjoy being more human and casual around you. I think you are a fun person to be around. Double quote. This one hits home. I was close with a couple teachers through high school. And would even put an extra effort in those classes. But when the teacher would get to a comfortable level around us, it was easy to forget that they got there because of the effort I put in. And it isn't an excuse to stop trying cause they like you. My gamertag. I usually say there's a policy against it, but there isn't. I just don't want to play Overwatch or whatever with a bunch of relatively good kids who turn into total monsters when they play video games. If I tell the cool ones, it'll get around. I'd imagine the hot teachers are very aware of the students' perception of them. And X200B. You don't even have to be particularly hot. It's more like this. We're aware of the fact that for some students the intimacy and power dynamics, coupled with age difference, can be erotic. I just pretend not to notice when I get certain looks. I'm a guy. BTW. Jumping on this to add something important that would otherwise get buried. Yes. We are fully aware that ex-teacher is incompetent means stupid. We toe the line and show solidarity because otherwise there would be chaos. Along similar lines, I'm laying down the law on this particularly idiotic policy that administration came up with because they could fire me for not doing so. I fking hate it even more than you do. One of the reasons they came up with it is because you guys are idiots with no impulse control. We're all in this together. You little FCKS. I can definitely hear the horrible things you are saying. Yes. I see that you are on the other side of the room. I may be old to you, but I am certainly not deaf. Also, that teenage boy is definitely going to buy you a Big Mac in exchange for oral sex. 100 out 100 times. I hate the texts as much as you do. But everyone just shrugs when I suggest changing them up. I'm sorry they made us keep that awful after book on the list. I genuinely offered to buy them all back from students so I could burn the waste of time that they are. I had an eccentric literature teacher in high school. Dr. Patrick. Who was required to teach the Odyssey. He absolutely hated it. So much so. He taught us off of the Cliff Notes. He explained how he was teaching it to us under protest. In his very thick Polish accent. Just another example. He organized the class into rows. Then gave each person a rank. The first in the row was the captain. And so on. You got promoted or demoted for getting answers right. But also for completely arbitrary reasons. I actually teach middle school rather than high school. But I'll play. I love them a whole bunch. I do actually tell them this. That's not the thing. But goddamn every single middle schooler is an asshole. Like. Even the best ones. They're all assholes. You can't help it at that age. Part of the process of being a good middle school teacher is accepting the assholishness and figuring out ways to work with it. Don't worry. Guys. Your peers, and you, will stop being assholes soon. Most of you. Anyway. Also. All the things you think your parents and teachers don't know about. We do. We've done it all. We just would prefer not to think about you doing it because you're much too young. A few off the top of my head. Just because I like you as a person doesn't mean that I won't fail you. Being smart isn't a justification for being lazy, and I can't pass someone that never hands in work. I moved you away from your friends because they were taking you down with them. You have a real future in sports, but you need to pass my class to play them. Your friends were making you fail, and if you don't get to play volleyball, I don't know what kind of future you have in front of you. I wish that the positivity that you get in my class could follow you home. I've met your parents and they are a nightmare. I do my best to encourage you here, but I know that some days that just might not be enough. I have never and will never find a student intimidating. That's why I laughed at you when you asked me if I knew who your father was. Yeah. He's the manager of a car dealership. That means nothing to nobody. I had a kid throw a desk at me, and while it scared me in the moment, it didn't make me fear him. One day, you will meet someone who has real power, and I just wish that I could be there to see it. One of the most valuable lessons I can teach you is to fake looking busy. If we're supposed to be working on an assignment or reading or whatever, and you see me coming your way, at the least have a piece of paper on your desk and a pen in your hand and some tea on your paper. And then I won't bother you. If you have nothing going on and can't even be bothered to make it look like you're trying, I'm heading your way. This lesson will be invaluable with eventual bosses someday. That I lied to you when I said I was 40. I was actually only 21, and I was only a couple of years older than you. I've seen you at the club and I've seen you partying. Furthermore, I have run into you in public way more times than you realize. But half the time I run away. The other half the time you catch me before I can. Also, when I was at the mall, the guy you pointed to and asked me if he was my boyfriend was just a random Tinder date I just met. He was definitely not my boyfriend. Your sense of entitlement is most likely acquired from your upbringing. So parent-teacher conferences to discuss your grades and going to dish tea when the parents just blame us, despite you putting in little to zero effort. To my freshmen. Yes, I always know when you didn't do my math because you stayed up late playing Fortnite. You added me as a friend on Epic, so I see that. Also, the amount of homework not done in lower grades when new battle passes come out is so coincidental. To a specific freshman, I support your desire to become a streamer, but I don't know if there's an exact quote I'd use. But I wish I could let my students know how dumb they look sometimes. And how they need to relax and stop taking themselves so seriously. I also frequently find myself wishing I could rag on kids' clothes hairstyles that they've obviously put way too much time money into, but these thoughts only cross my mind when they're being assholes. That's the unprofessional petty stuff I'd say. I could think of something much more wise. But it's my lunch break and Friday and my brain is fried from trying to keep these assholes together a week before finals. I taught after school care summer school for a year and I want so badly to tell them that. Common now is a great time to find out who they are and to stop parroting what they hear other people say. 2. Stop trying so hard to make Jamie like you and be your friend, because even though you and Jamie have been friends since pre-K, people growing apart is normal and Jamie is a manipulative McMuffin. 3. I kept Owen and other troublemakers close to me in class because giving them just a little positive attention was infinitely preferable to giving them all of my attention in a negative light. Plus, maybe they just needed someone to listen and give them one-on-one, which I'm happy to do. 4. It's useless saying it because it's not going to make a difference. But this week's crisis won't matter next year or maybe even next week, and it certainly won't matter on your deathbed. And X200B. Yes. I put you in a group with the kid you have a crush on intentionally. I'm stuck here with you 180 days a year. I want to see some drama. The odds of you using any specific piece of knowledge you learn in high school is slim. The odds of you using some piece of knowledge from high school is near absolute, and you have no idea what it's going to be or when it will happen. So you may as well try at all of it. The biggest thing you're going to learn is how to learn. One of the most memorable things a teacher said to me, I'm really glad she did say it to my face. I really like you as a person, but I hate you as a student. Double quote. My French teacher told me this when I was in high school. During this period where I was really depressed and on the verge of flunking out. Having her be so honest with me and pointing out that I was wasting my potential made me want to do better, and eventually I did. If you are stupid enough to have filmed yourself doing something that can get you in trouble, especially legal trouble, for the love of God don't post it online. I am no longer a teacher. But I remember several days that I felt lazy and wanted to give the class the day off. I never did because I knew the teacher's pet would rat me out. Sometimes even the teachers don't like the teacher's pet. Sort of late to this party. But I often want to tell my students to enjoy themselves more and worry less. And I guess I do tell them that pretty often. But what I really wish I could communicate is that it's perfectly natural to break the rules and be a little more reckless at their age. This would be pretty irresponsible of me to tell them, as kids need their teachers to be role models of good impulses. Not bad impulses. But sometimes I want to. Kids today seem very frightened of the future and don't want to take chances. Especially when it comes to having fun. I don't blame them based on the environments they are raised in. Also, if they have an A+ in my class, they can make a low F on the final and still wind up with an A. I'd tell my kids that their stupid decision to stay out on the weekdays and not do any work will probably lead to them doing the same thing their parents do and living the same life. All my kids are incredibly low income. Also, their forced helplessness is not their fault. But I wish I could tell them to recognize it and do something about it. Lastly, please, for the love of God, do the F-King reading. It's not hard. I teach middle school, not high school. But for me, it's that I know Shti sucks at home. I see it every day when you come into my class. I see the tears you're hiding. The pain behind that class clown smile. The emotional fragility behind your tough guy persona. I know exactly what it's like to come from a broken home. I wish I could do something. But until you come to me, all I can do is try and let you know. With a look. A smile. A subtle turn of phrase. That I'm always there for you when you need an ear. Or a shoulder. I teach middle school in Taiwan. My students are 60% ESL, 30% intermediate English proficiency, and 10% native fluency. Only have 42 students, so this number is pretty on the money. I want to tell them this. I'm not an idiot. When you are ridiculing me in Chinese, I've picked up phrases and know which ones you're using. Don't act surprised when I give you detention for calling me Benden, Dumbus, or Beichi, idiot. I know what you're saying, ugh. Benden. I teach special needs 11-14-year-olds, and I tell them that growing up is going to be hard for them and not everyone is going to be as understanding or patient as the staff at our school, and they need to learn to reel it in sometimes. I'd also tell them how precious and wonderful they are. Even when they drive me mad asking the same question over and over. They might not have the same advantages as other children, but their gifts are just as legitimate as any other child's. Some of them might not know how to flush a toilet, but they sure can draw a perfect replica of the Death Star. Some can't remember their own birthday, but they smile every morning and say how happy they are to see us, and it's just lovely. I love my job. I don't care if you get high. Either take some edibles so we don't smell it. And don't do it when you're in the actual building. And don't do too much so it's obvious due to how incompetent you're acting. I get it. You have anxiety. I wish you had a better coping mechanism instead of weed, but I'm glad you're doing something rather than avoiding school. Etc. Just please don't give me a reason to send you to the nurse and or dean. Learn some practical skills. We all have to at some point.